In hindsight, ripping the barn doors completely off their hinges and walking through the fire was probably not the best way to keep a bunch of fools in a room full of fire from panicking. The two fools on the ground and the one that had somehow managed to get into the rafters all stared at him with terror in their eyes as he entered the burning barn. One was an orange Pegasus with purple mane. The one next to it was a unicorn with a purple-pink mane, and the one hanging onto the rafters was a regular pony with a red mane, and all three of them were in danger. "Okay, the three of you just remain calm. I'm here to help," he said to the three, in a calm voice with both hands raised in front of him, taking slow steps towards them. But just as he feared, the two on the ground backed away from him in terror and nearly backed into the fire. This wasn't going to work. They didn't trust him. He had to find a way for them to believe him when he said he was going to help them. An idea came into his head, and he walked underneath the one hanging from the rafters. "Listen to me. You've got to get down. Don't worry, I'll catch you," he called up to the one hanging from the rafters. If he could get one of them to trust him, maybe the other two would trust him as well. "Are you crazy? I'm not letting a freaky monster catch me!" she screamed as she clung even tighter to the beam. Superman frowned. He could fly up and get her, but that would terrify them even more. He had to convince them that he wasn't going to hurt them. "Don't worry. I promise I won't hurt you, and I will catch you," he said in his most sincere voice. The filly looked down at him from the rafters, looking him in the eyes and seeing if he was telling the truth. She closed her eyes and took a nervous swallow before letting go of the beam. Superman was right there when she fell and caught her gently in his arms. The filly opened her eyes and looked up into Superman's face. You caught me," she whispered. "I promised, didn't I?" he said with a smile. "All right, everyone get out of here." The other two exchanged glances and ran over to him. They looked up at him nervously, but allowed him to pick them up and put them in his arms next to their friend. He wrapped his cape around all three of them and walked back out through the fire. Making it outside safely, he gently put the three fillies on the ground and let out a sigh of relief. The two of them started to shake the ash off their coats, but the yellow one stared at the burning barn. My barn's gone," she sniffed. Tears started to fall from her eyes. Superman frowned and looked at the burning barn. Using his X-ray vision, he found that even though it was burning, it was still salvageable. "Don't worry, I can save your barn," he said with a smile to the filly. She looked up at him with tear-stained eyes. Really?" she asked. "I can, but the three of you need to get behind me." When the three fillies had done this, Superman planted both feet on the ground and took in a deep breath. When he exhaled, a blast of wind blew from his mouth, blowing away all the dirt and debris around the barn. The fire was immediately extinguished by the gale, and the barn remained standing despite the fire damage. Superman smiled and turned to face the fillies, whose jaws were on the ground. "There, problem solved," he said with another smile. The yellow one looked up at him in awe, while the other two continued to gawk at the barn. "How'd you do that?" the yellow one asked him in a whisper. "I just simply exhaled, and the force of my breath extinguished the fire." The filly rolled her eyes. "No, I mean, how did you do that? No pony I know has the lung strength to put out a fire by blowing at it." The other two had snapped out of their stupor and had turned to look at Superman, waiting to hear an answer. "Well, I guess I can do it because of my superpowers," he said with a shrug. All three of the fillies widened as he said this, and they gazed at him with awe. "You're a superhero?" the white one with the pinkish mane asked, pushing past the yellow one. Superman nodded. "Prove it," the one with the purple mane dared, pushing past her two friends. "I just extinguished the fire with my breath. What more proof do you need?" "Ha! Rainbow Dash could do that with her eyes closed," the orange one bragged. Superman raised an eyebrow. "Well," the yellow one began, fighting her way through the other two. "I would like to thank ya, Superman," he finished for her. "Okay, Superman. Thanks for saving my barn," she said with a smile, her accent becoming thicker. "Happy to help," he told them, turning away and preparing to take off. Wait! He stopped mid-jump and turned back to the three. "Yes, what is it?" The yellow one looked down at her hooves as if embarrassed to ask her next question. If you're so happy to help, would you mind helping us repair the barn? If my sister finds it in this state, she'll kill us." Superman considered saying no, since they probably should take responsibility for their actions. But the three of them gave him the puppy dog eyes routine, and Superman found he just had to help. "All right, I'll help you." "Thanks! Applejack would be mad if we lost another barn this month." "This month?" Superman asked with a raised eyebrow. "Yeah, our barn's been destroyed twice already. If I burned it down again, AJ'd be super mad." "Again?" he asked, but the fillies were no longer listening to him. They had formed a mini-circle and had begun to discuss their plan. "Okay, if we manage to repaint the barn's outside and inside, we should be able to repair it before Applejack gets back," the one with the yellow fur said. "She'll never know that it happened." "Actually, she will." The fillies turned to Superman, who had crossed both his arms and was giving them a stern look. "How would she know? We're not going to tell her," the one said. Superman smiled. "Actually, you are. That's my condition for helping you. You have to tell your sister the truth." The fillies all started to argue with him, but he held up a hand and they fell silent. "Are we agreed?" The yellow one wanted to argue, but she looked at the blackened barn and sighed. "We agree to your terms," she muttered. "Good. But before we begin, I'd like to know your names and what you were doing in the barn with a flamethrower." "I'm Applebloom," the yellow filly said, running up to him. "I'm Sweetiebelle," the white one said with a smile, jumping on her friend's back. "And I'm Scootaloo," the orange one said, jumping onto the other two. The tower of fillies collapsed, and they all landed on the ground, laughing. "All right, Applebloom, Sweetiebelle, Scootaloo. Tell me what you were doing in a wooden barn with a flamethrower. In fact, where did you three get a flamethrower in the first place?" The three gave each other the nervous smiles before answering. We made it," Scootaloo said with a small smile. Both Superman's eyebrows went up at the same time. "You made a flamethrower, all by yourselves." "Well, Spike helped a little, but yeah, we made it ourselves," Scootaloo said. Superman blinked twice before asking his next question. "You're not often supervised, are you?" Superman asked, placing a hand on his face. "Nope," all three of them said at once. Superman shook his head and turned back to the barn. "All right, how about we get this barn fixed up?" The three fillies nodded and ran off, but soon came back with buckets of red paint and brushes. Superman thought about what he should do next. It would be a lot easier if he fixed up the entire barn himself, but he also didn't want to show off too much of his power. Besides, he wanted the fillies to do some of the work since they were the ones who caused the mess in the first place. "Okay, how about this? I'll get one half of the barn, and you three get the other half." The three instantly agreed and started to open paint cans, arguing over who got what. He smiled at their antics while taking up a brush and paint can before walking over to the other side of the barn. The moment he was over there and out of sight, he used his super speed to grab new beams and support from the pile near the back of the house. Since Applebloom told him that they repaired the barn twice a month, he knew they'd still have some construction material left over. While the fillies continued to argue, he zipped inside the barn and started to repair the damage. He destroyed badly damaged supports with his heat vision and quickly replaced it with a new support. He did the same for the beams, destroying and replacing them as needed. When the interior was structurally strong again, he zipped back outside to his side of the barn. He tore off the lid of the paint can and dipped his brush inside. He quickly painted not only the wall, but also the roof, back wall, and any place else where the barn had been burned. What he did last was to fix and reattach the barn doors to the front, making them as good as new. When he finished, he came to a stop by his wall and placed the brush back inside the paint can. Superman looked at his work fondly, as it reminded him of home. Growing up as a farm boy in Kansas, he was used to tasks like painting barns and repairing damage. It came with the territory.